event before I introduce my guest, and we'll take it from there. According to the NSA by him, who was represented, the National Center has retrieved a total of 3,383 decommissioned, unserviceable, obsolete, and illicit small arms and light weapons, and 26,749 various calibers of ammunition from the arms-bearing agencies of government. Of course, with this number, would you agree that now is the time to have an official agency that will be in control of issues such as this? We have High Chief Darlington Umoru, a security consultant, who is here in the studio with us this morning. Thank you for being here on the program today.
My pleasure.
I know that anytime we talk about issues surrounding insecurity, you're always very particular about small arms and light weapons, because you're also one of the members of a committee on this particular issue. The figure I read out, is that really an official figure, or is it safe to say that is the record of what, who has said this, and the record of what they do have? Could it be more, or could it be fewer than that number?
Well, good morning once again. First, let me take it from the point of view of being a member of this committee. I'm not a member of this committee. I was a consultant to the Presidential Committee on Small Arms and Light Weapons that the National Center for the Control of Small Arms and Light Weapons took over from. Precisely in the era of Buhari.
Right.
Buhari's regime created this center, and they're having their second coordinator.
Okay.
Even though
so you were in the committee that gave birth to the center
as a consultant.
As a consultant, okay.
Yes.
All right.
Now back to the figure you have in terms of ammunitions in the hands of this in the possession of the center at the moment. I won't be able to tell whether precisely what has been quoted is exactly what they have at the moment, or whether they have even more. The center has not really, pardon my choice of words, the center has not really been in action. Before now, activities have been quite slow. Over time, even at the era of the Presidential Committee on Small Arms and Light Weapons, there was no law backing it.
Okay.
The creation of that committee is supposed to be under Article 24 of the ECOWAS Convention. And it's also in the UN, one of the UN's articles.
Right.
And all the countries are expected to have had a law backing that body, where they can have a budget of their own. Under the Presidential Committee on Small Arms and Light Weapons, PRESCOM, that gave birth to the center, there was really not a law backing it. The committee sent a bill to the National Assembly demanding that that bill should be approved and eventually accepted by those presidents who came. It started from the era of Jonathan, moved on to the era of Buhari, and then before this one was created. But even so, aside from Gambia and Nigeria, all other African countries had domesticated that body. To the glory of God, even though it didn't take the form or format in terms of nomenclature, which is supposed to be a commission, it came in the form of a center. That bill was sent, I think it was an executive bill that went from the office of the NSA, but by the grace of God now it's been accented to by Mr. President.
Right.
It tells you about the concern of this administration in terms of arresting insecurity and the proliferation of small arms and light weapons from the country. Other presidents didn't do it, and then it moved from one ministry to the other. First Ministry Affairs, it was at the time it was under the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. At another time, it moved on to the office of the NSA and all of that. But to the glory of God today, this center is under the ministry, under the ONSA, the Office
of National Security Advisor.
God bless you, ma. You know, and so talking about what they have been able to garner, I think they've not really been able to work because information that got to me stated that they were expecting the bill to be passed into law before they can take off.
Okay.
Now, over time, what hindered some of the activities of that body was the fact that budgets, there were no official budgets from the National Assembly dedicated to that office to do their jobs. Aside from international donors, you have to go, the bodies need to go cap in hand looking for money to sponsor their program. But any day the president woke up from its bad side, then activities will be granted.
In that office.
But now what we have, it's a legal body. Now there will be formal budget for that body every year for them to be able to do the activity, carry out the activities. And so it means now that what has been quoted is what they had received from the Nigerian Customs Service.
Right.
You know, a small arms and light weapons
seized.
Yes, and other security agencies.
Right.
And so when you make seizures, you create a document for them, and then you hand over to the center either for destruction
or for keeps. Okay. Part of what this center will be doing is to control influx of illicit arms, and so
control and prevention.
Yeah. So again, perhaps through regional cooperation, manning of the borders, and working hand in hand with security agencies. But how
and
best?
Even international organizations like the United Nations, EU, ECOWAS.
Okay, so how best can this be done now that this body has been fully legalized and they have all of the things that they will be needing to do their duties? Because again, we've realized that over time, these arms do get into the hands of unauthorized people, especially the light weapons and small arms. So how best will they do this unhindered?
Well, it's about synergy. There's nothing they can do on their own alone.
Okay.
It's a center that has a primary responsibility of the control and prevention of the proliferation of small arms and light weapons in Nigeria. And so for them to be able to achieve this, there has to be synergy. They have to work with other security agencies.
Okay.
I talked about what the customs have done. The customs has the primary responsibility of manning our borders, whether land, sea, or air. Okay, and so their responsibility is to check for those goods that are coming in or going out, whether illicit or legal.
Okay.
And then, of course, you know, they also generate revenue from their transactions, one of their core responsibilities. Okay. You know, but again, they are one of those agencies that are supposed to synergize with the center. And then when seizures are made, they are handed over to the center. Right. Then you also have the Nigerian police, you also have the DSS, and then other security agencies that have the responsibility of, you know, dealing with seizures and all of that, or monitoring security activities.
So who are those that can work in this center? Because again, when we talk about, you know, handling firearms, light weapons, and all of that at the center, who are those that, you know, are able to work there? Are they also security officers, or are they people who are specially trained to identify some of these things that may be illegal? Because a lot of people, some people also bring in some of this ammunition, and of course they were imported legally for various means. But then how does it work for those who would be working at the center? How would they be able to identify some of these things we're talking about?
Well, it's a combination of all of those you have mentioned. You have security officers, past and present. Of course, you are aware that the coordinator of the center at the moment is a retired police officer. Is no longer in service. You have members of the military, and then now what the center has provided for now is to have state offices.
Okay.
which was not there in the era of the past bodies,
Okay.
that existed. They have offices in states and state coordinators who are also very experienced people in terms of handling of firearms and ammunition. And so you also have individuals who are experts in their office. Of course, some of these people are trained by some other persons who are also who have the knowledge,
Okay.
the know-how about what it is. But it is not for them for handling. Theirs is to liaise with international organizations and then go with the convention, what should be done, because UN is worried about the proliferation of small arms and light weapons across the world.
Right.
And then bring it down to AU and then narrow it down to ECOWAS.
Right.
Which is the regional head. And so those who have been appointed as members of that center, are those who are experts in their own right.
Okay.
Talking about the military, the security agencies, other persons who are knowledgeable also, who work with them. Sometimes you bring in persons from abroad who will come help in some training.
Okay.
And all of that. I benefited a lot from such trainings in the past,
Right.
Where to fine-tune your expertise and lift your knowledge,
Okay.
increase your knowledge and all of that.
So, yeah, I mean, rightly, you mentioned the fact that international collaborations are needed here when we talk about proliferation for light weapons and small arms. So it means that it is not a Nigerian problem. It is a global issue.
Oh, yes.
How does this, how can we tie this to insecurity?
I really don't understand the angle you want.
Right, because again, you talked about international collaboration. So
Yes.
if there is the proliferation, it means that people are dealing, in this situation across borders. And so when we talk about these things coming into the country from other places, how do we tie this with the rising case of insecurity in Nigeria?
Well, of course, no weapons, no war, no weapons, no terrorism.
Okay.
No weapons, no banditry. The tools they need to carry out their nefarious or criminal activities is to bear weapons, is to bear arms.
Right.
And then these small arms and light weapons are often gotten through various means. And if you want to look at how they get all of that, it's a long subject in itself.
Okay.
But again, whether other countries where these things come from have been able to really secure their borders from allowing these things to go out, it's another kettle of fish.
Okay.
Beyond the factory manufactured weapons that are accessed by the non-state actors, the most dangerous one we suffer today are the locally fabricated ones that are you really cannot check, that don't go through borders.
Okay.
They don't go through borders because they are fabricated and easily accessed by criminals.
Okay.
Okay, but those ones that come in from borders still find their way into the country.
One way or the other.
One either from as a result of the wars that happen in neighboring countries, or well, if you want to look at the one in Nigeria, you talk about those that come in through the Sahel. Since the fall of Libya, Nigeria has suffered. The dump of Libya was really transported down to many countries,
Okay.
and they help in finding their ways to the northern part, through the northern part of Nigeria.
Okay.
Porous borders have not helped. One of the ECOWAS articles that provided for free movement amongst ECOWAS countries has also not helped security, because grazing is also one of those factors that have crippled or destroyed the enablement of stopping the movement of these illicit firearms into the country. But the biggest one, like I said, Nigerian locally fabricators have gone so sophisticated to the extent that what they manufacture now, or what they fabricate, I'm talking about our local blacksmiths.
Local production, okay.
What they fabricate now can 100% compete with what you find from the factories in Europe, America, Asia.
Wow.
And so, like I've often said on other television stations, in one of our trainings, we were told to differentiate between firearms were provided. When I mean firearms, now I'm talking about guns in the local, what people really refer to as guns, like the AK-47, the AK-49, the AKM. For instance, when you bring them physically, or you provide photographs of the ones that are coming from Europe or America, and then you bring the seized ones from our locally made, from our local fabricators, and then you put them on
side by
side and tell an expert to differentiate between them.
It's difficult.
It's a very difficult one. But one thing...
They have their numbers.
Yes, the code.
Okay.
That tracing code is one of those things that could only help you, because those ones are not in the ones, you may not find them in their own.
Okay.
But even if you find them, they may not be in the register.
So they are...
But in terms of quality...
They are almost the same.
Almost better than what you bring in. Not just the same.
The local fabricated ones. Almost better than what you bring in.
I saw some that were seized from some locally manufacturers in Plateau State. Some AK-47 they were arrested, and about 4 of those AK-47 were recovered from them. My dear sister, if those men were not arrested, and I was told that they were arrested here, and I merely saw those weapons, I would have concluded that they were one of those imported.
So, in other words, what is being produced here in Nigeria, like you mentioned, could also, be better than some of these things brought into the country. And so if such is the situation on ground, sometimes, of course, what the center also said, they were to disarm. There would be a disarmament of these weapons. Are there also fears that during destructions or during disarmament of these weapons, some may also discover legs?
No. It's what we have had in the past. There are some of these things we cannot really say on air. When it comes to some of these issues, we are careful. There are things we don't really let out. But let me just say this. To some extent, what has been discovered is that sometimes, before they are given to the center, before they get to the center, seizures and all of that, some could grow legs.
Okay.
Sometimes... and
go back into the system.
Go back into the system. Well, we've had bad eggs, for instance, from some security agencies who even hire out some of these weapons to criminal elements, just to make money for themselves. And so that is the point. But at the point of submission to the center, for instance, records are created. And so at the point of destruction, a lot of agencies come together to do the supervision. Okay. On the basis of what is in the record. And so representatives of even civil society organizations are also invited to also monitor and witness the destruction. It's an open thing, but open in the sense that to some extent is done on the invitation of those of them who are meant to witness it. You understand? It's not, when I say open, it's not like
I understand
they will now call the whole of Lagos State people and people like
to those who are really
and Darlington.
I don't even want to come.
Go there and see.
I don't want to see the destruction. The people like you should.
No, journalists are also part of the
those
team.
That cover crime.
No, it does not matter. We may decide to ask that you should go and see the way it's done so that your knowledge will increase about small arms destruction.
Right.
Disarmament, of course, you know that under disarmament, it's not been done for a long time. We had Zamfara State at a point in time that attempted to withdraw firearms from the bandits and gave monies and all that. One of the bandits that came out that was promised heaven and earth to surrender his weapons with his boys eventually went back to the forest when he said that the government didn't meet up with the agreement.
Right.
And so, yes, we need plenty of disarmament, and then we need plenty of destruction. Across the world, in Nigeria, I think we have too many of small arms and light weapons in circulation, and we have just about 10% in the hands of the state actors, as against what you have in the hands of the non-state actors. Right now, nobody can give you a complete figure of what we have in the hands of the non-state actors.
We don't even
particularly know. with the number of bandits you have out there. But the greatest challenge is that beyond those ones that come in through our borders, our porous borders, sometimes not just the porous borders, they come in, some of them come in through the normal borders. You see, the checks for states to purchase and get these firearms, talking about for the state actors now, is very rigorous. It's not even as easy as that, where some countries will just, sometimes countries have to end up buying from black markets.
Wow.
Because, for instance, if any member of ECOMOG now, ECOWAS country now want to purchase firearms from manufacturers in Europe, they have to go through ECOWAS.
Okay. It's mandatory.
It is. So ECOWAS will issue certificate of what now?
Purchase?
No, not purchase. Sorry, I'll get it. There's a certificate the ECOWAS will issue to you. When you write, they will publish for a couple of months or weeks. And then if there are nobody's challenging that, they will now
give you the go-ahead to purchase.
They will now issue you that certificate, which you must present to the factory. But the non-state actors don't need all of that. They go to the blacksmiths to make their purchase. Sometimes they even have their own manufacturers. You remember, if you recall stories of when Sambisa was invaded severally by our gallant military, you know, and what was also recovered was smaller factories inside Sambisa
where they make
forest, where they manufacture these things themselves.
All right, actually, before we allow you to go this morning, now this center, like you've said, is now here, fully here, backed by law. But of course, like you rightly pointed out at the beginning of this conversation, activities are picking up bit by bit. And so what are your expectations if indeed the country is to move in its fight against proliferation of small arms and light weapons? What are the things that this center needs to start doing so that, of course, this center will also gain its feet on the ground and able to fight this war to the barest minimum?
They have to hit the ground running, but that, again, will be dependent on whether they have enough funds to run their activities. It's not about them hitting the ground and running. They can't do it with the saliva in their mouth.
It has to be funded.
They have to be adequately funded. But now, I don't know, I think there has to be a supplementary budget for them to start work at the moment, because the budget for this year
is gone.
Is gone. But I am believing that, and this year is running out. We're in the last quarter of this year. I'm believing that they'll really be able to hit the ground running by next year. When they would have had a proper budget. But they are also going to create a budget for themselves, you know, a bill which they will submit to through the office of the NSA that will look at it and then approve, and then forward to the National Assembly. You know, but up until they have enough funding, there's not much they can do.
Even with the creation of the state offices they intend to do, can they also start putting...
The state offices will need funds to run.
So nothing can be achieved here without proper funding?
Nothing. Something can be achieved without proper funding, but not so much.
Not so much.
Yes, but the issue is beyond... I'm sure by now the coordinator would have settled down, would have been able to, you know, have some meetings with some security agencies and his men, and then they would have known how to relate with some other international bodies and then some international donors where they can. The government cannot do it alone. The federal government cannot do it alone. They also need to work with some international donors where they can also generate funds for some trainings and some programs. Because theirs is to run some programs. Well, the last phase of program the Presidential Committee ran was not the type Jonathan introduced, where you seized firearms, you grant them amnesty and you paid money to them.
Okay.
No. What was done was they provided alternative livelihood to the people.
Okay.
And so communities were brought into the picture, traditional rulers were brought into the picture, CSOs were brought into the picture, they were all carried along,
okay.
and then the needs of community, and then these people where you want to take out of crime, what do you give to them
As
in return? If you give them money, they'll spend that money.
Right.
But if you gave them vocation,
okay.
and then
something
started
to build on, and then they could also make a living from those things. Okay. Because we need to let
I know. When you're taking those words from my mouth,
we need to let you go.
I know I've overstayed.
We need to let you go. Thank you so much, Chief Darlington Umoru, for finding time to be here on the program. We do hope that the center will kick the ground running like you've proposed, and of course the federal government will do the needful by providing adequate funding for them.
Before I go, I think that certificate is called exemption certificate.
Oh, okay. Exempt. Why is the exemption if you'll be allowed to purchase?
Well, that's what it's called. But I think it's like an approval.
Okay, for you to buy.
Yes,
okay.
something in that neighborhood.
All right, thank you so much for coming on the program. We appreciate your thoughts. All right, we do hope that, of course, the center, now that it has the full backing of the law, will be able to carry out its full responsibilities. There's a need to mop up. Like the security experts would always say, we do not want these things to get into the hands of the non-state actors. Everybody wants to live, a secure life. Thank you so much for watching the conversation this morning. When we return from the break, it'll be turn of the Lagos ladies to take you through their conversation.
I could see them.